Actually JFDM.
Actually, JFDM here. Thanks everyone for tuning in to another Draw Steel campaign diary. This is the 7th or 8th session, something like that, and the party's about to embark on their second adventure. They saved the town of Broads, and now they're headed off to cleanse their new plot of land from the Radenwight infestation. They had some business in the seat of the barony, keep Keepanovia first. The conduit decided that he wanted to speak to Reyna, the Polder conduit that they met way back at the beginning of the first adventure. The Time Raider conduit sort of dresses himself down, hides his symbols, puts on. He said he made himself look like a Dark Souls boss, which I thought was a perfect vibe for the priest of the Iron Saint. And so he headed over to the Church of the Iron Saint, just sort of walked in. He didn't really want to say why he was there. He didn't like drop her name. He gets like the basic tour from this priest that's sort of on temple duty, if you will, Jason. Eventually, he slips away from Jason and finds Reyna, and she is like, "Oh, you're just here, okay, yeah." And so she gets him outside, and they're talking, and he wants to learn about manifold stuff, things that they sort of heard about and found out about at the end of the last adventure, but she doesn't really know about that. So, they go to the tavern and they're having some food and a drink, and he is sort of talking about this stuff, and she says, well, do you know why this town was made? Why it was built here? And he goes, well, no, I've only really been here for a short period of time. Why was it? She says, well, this whole place used to basically just be a temple, not even a town. It was a temple to St. Llewellyn. St. Llewellyn's virtues are particularly antithetical to Ajax. So when the Iron Saint came and destroyed that temple, they built the new church and a keep here, and the whole point was that they had to bury it and make sure it stayed buried. I don't know why, but perhaps you could find some buried knowledge here. Give me some time. I can poke around in the church and see what I can find for you. So he was like, yes, please, that would be great, do that. So she's sort of setting up the next adventure after the one they're on right now, assuming they choose to do it. So they part ways, and the conduit player is feeling pretty good that, we're gonna, I'm gonna get some information. There's, something afoot here. Wait till the next morning, and they head off. The other players, they made another project roll, and so they head off back to the map west, and they reach the turnoff to head up towards their land. There's like a dilapidated sign, an old looking road. I told the tactician player that since he fixed a bunch of roads around Broads, like, hey, this one could definitely use your touch when you have your plot of land. Reconnect yourself to the main thoroughfare here. And eventually they come across the Rat Pack. This is the Radenwights that are like Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and Sammy Davis Jr. And these rats, they're like, hey, we want to put on a show for you. So they start performing, and they sing this song that sort of alludes to the fact that the Archpontifex, who's the leader up at the ruins of the barracks, should be moving on to bigger things, but isn't. It also mentions the beast that stalks the land at night. So the players pick up on these things, and they're like, oh, there's something that stalks the land, interesting. But after the performance, I had them like roll some type of perception check, and sure enough, they rolled high enough that they noticed the other Radenwights stealing their stuff. So they sort of didn't want to fight them at first. They wanted to sort of bring them into conversation. But the Rat Pack, they didn't want to talk. So the Radenwights slowly back away, and they start moving away, and Frank and Dean are like, what, you caught him stealing and you just gotta let him go just like that? Loki calling them suckers. So it ends up being that the players let these rats go and disappear into the woods, and then the players are like, hold on a second, they said some weird stuff. Maybe we should go have another talk with them. So the players follow their tracks, which is easy because they had like this cart that the three Rat Pack members, with the help of their two like enforcers, Bambino and Bugsy, fold down into a stage. So they follow these cart tracks, and they come upon them not too far away in a clearing. And Frank and Dean are sort of admonishing all these rats for getting caught. What are you guys, a bunch of idiots? Yeah, how'd you let them catch you, huh? Iron Saint lady, she's gonna be pissed, okay? She told us, you know what she told us. And then they didn't roll very well on their stealth as they were trying to listen in on this. And they stayed on their horses, so one of the horses made a noise, and they turn and they say, well, looks like we get another chance. Let's get them, boys. And, combat started. So now the players have another reason to want to talk to one of these rat folk. They need to know which Iron Priest lady hired them, because immediately they're thinking, I hope this wasn't Reyna. But they also know it could be another one, because when Reyna and the Conduit player were talking, she mentioned Archlector Fiora, who has a heavy hand in what is going on in Keep Anovia, though the players haven't seen her yet. So they fight the Rat Pack, and the Rat Pack is pretty nasty, but the players are also quite nasty, and the players do win. Now, Sammy, Frank, and Dean almost run away. They almost escape, but with some clever use of abilities and things to get them basically to be able to run almost entirely across the map, the three members of the Rat Pack get chased down. Frankie is killed, Dean gets knocked out, and Sammy, frightened after Frank's head was exploded basically all over him, surrenders. So they have two prisoners, and they're intimidating this poor rat, and Dean is still unconscious from being knocked out. Sammy is telling them everything. Yes, there's a red-eyed rat beast, or some type of beast that stalks the land. It hunts by night. Now the players hit upon this idea, well, we've got some live bait and dead. We'll just find a nice place, make a pile, and see what this beast is. Sammy is terrified. He's whimpering, crying. Some of the players don't seem to like the treatment of Sammy. Others, they have that player almost murder hobo mentality of, we won the fight, they attacked us, everything we do is right, everything they do is wrong. So, using someone as live bait, yep, it is what it is. That's what they're doing. But they don't end up using Sammy, because I see this happening and I'm like, okay, I think I can massage this situation. So I have Dean wake up from being knocked out, and he's like doing this gurgling laugh, and he just starts, insulting the players, like telling them that the beast that stalks the land is gonna just rip them to shreds, nothing they do matters, all this stuff. So now they have a more hostile, he's spitting vitriol at them. And so now they can save the one that was begging for his life and still have their live bait. It's a slight upgrade. So Sammy says, oh, there's an old farmhouse not too far from here. Plus the sun's going down, so you'll want to take cover soon. So the party drives their new cart that they took this Rat Pack's cart, hooked their horses up to it, a couple of them, and they took a pile of rat corpses along with their two prisoners over to this farmhouse, where they staked Dean out, and Conrad finally gagged him because he was just shouting and howling to draw a bunch of attention, and laughing because he thought he was just so funny, being annoying to the heroes. We ended the session with them inside that house and the horses whinnying in terror. But one of the things they saw before I narrated that was they could hear the quiet sound of bell-like music and see an ominous green glow on the horizon to the north. They have some hints as to what they might find further north, and they're also about to be put in the situation where a pretty gnarly were-rat, which I used the werewolf stat block, but I sort of reflavored it to be a bit more rat-like as opposed to the wolf vibes. So that is going to not only go after the live bait they put out, but I think the players sort of forget that they have these horses and they were riding them, and so the horses must be tied up somewhere. And the horses are a little bit more enticing of live bait than a pile of dead rat corpses. So yeah, they're gonna have to act pretty quickly if they want to save their horses, at which point it's gonna be a fight against this creature. Now, one of the things they want is they want either Sammy or Dean or both to survive. They want to bring them back to Keep Anovia and get them to point the finger at Archlector Fiora, because that is one of the things that Sammy said. Sammy, Frank, and Dean were contracted by Archlector Fiora specifically to deal with these heroes. Mostly because part of what was happening in Keep Anovia when they were still there was that the Baron's Herald and the Baron's Bard were out singing these heroes' praises and telling their story, so that everyone, in that town knows who they are now, and Fiora does not like this. Archlector Fiora does not like things and attention being focused on Keep Anovia, because attention and word of mouth spread of heroes and the type of thing that is very similar to the teachings of Saint Llewellyn, the well-being of the people, the responsibility of the strong to protect the weak, the only proper use of power is in the pursuit of justice. If people start believing in that, then what's buried beneath Keep Anovia might awaken. And if that happens, then there could be a real problem for her plans. So that's where we left off, and do have Sammy, and if they can keep Sammy alive through this were-rat encounter, which is definitely going to be something that might not be possible, because this thing does quite a bit of damage, then he can tell them and show them a secret entrance that could get them almost directly to the Archpontifex, which could very much condense down this adventure, and if they decide to negotiate with the Archpontifex as opposed to killing him, then he could just get everyone to leave. So we'll see what they decide to do. We play again in a week. See you then.